Hi friends, Miss Liz here again. So today I'm going to show you how to make a white chocolate snowman cocoa bomb. So the recipe for the white chocolate cocoa mix is posted in the classroom. If you have questions about that, feel free to send me a message. But you're just going to take all of those powder ingredients and whisk them together until you get a nice fine mixture, just like this. Oh, it smells delicious. So good. And that you can keep it in an airtight container until you're ready to use it. And you're gonna melt your white chocolate, either melting chips or I personally use almond bark because it's a little easier to melt smoothly. Melting wafers, melting chips tend to be a little bit more difficult to get a good melted consistency, but they tend to hold up a little more sturdy. So it's kind of up to you what your preference is. Almond bark is also a lot easier to find in my area, so that's what I usually use. So what I've done is I've put about 6 ounces of chocolate in here, which if you're using almond bark is about 3 of these squares. If you're doing bagged melting chips, that's gonna be about 3/4 of a cup usually. Melt that until it's nice and smooth in 30-second increments in your microwave until you get a nice pourable consistency, okay? And then just like with our first cocoa bombs, you're gonna take a spoonful of that chocolate and you're just gonna put it into the well. Use the back of your spoon to kind of push the chocolate up around the sides. Make sure you don't have any holes. Anywhere where you can see the mold through the chocolate or a spot where you've missed, make sure you patch that. And again, we're gonna do 2 coats of chocolate, so that first one doesn't have to be super thick. We just want a nice even coat with no holes. And then we'll pop it into our fridge or our freezer and do that second coat. Okay, but for that first coat, we're just gonna get that nice and smooth with no big holes. Make sure you're looking at it from all different angles because sometimes you might think that you have it completely covered, but there's a hole when you look at it from the other side. So make sure you're tipping it around and getting all covered, no gaps in your melted chocolate, okay? So we're gonna do that in all of the wells and then pop it into the fridge or the freezer for a few minutes until it sets up nice and sturdy. And then we'll come back and do that second coat again, and then we'll do the assembly process. Okay, friends, so I'm gonna show you how to do that second coat of chocolate. So you can see this is set up nice and hard. You can kind of see where it pools a little bit in the center if I have a little bit of excess. That's okay. It's not going to make a big difference other than it just uses a little bit more of the chocolate and you have a thicker bottom, but that's okay. So for that second coat, I'm not really pouring chocolate into it. I'm just using the back of the spoon to kind of paint some chocolate on the sides. We want to make sure we're focusing on that top rim all the way around the edge because when our bombs break, it's usually because that top rim edge is too thin. So we want to make sure we get that chocolate all the way up to that top edge for both the first and the second coat, but really focusing on it in that second coat so it's nice and sturdy. It does not have to be perfect. They don't have to be beautiful on the inside because nobody is going to see the center. Just make sure that they're nice and thick and nice and sturdy. That's the main goal here. So we're using just enough chocolate to make it sturdy, but we don't want to make it super thick. Number 1, that uses a lot of chocolate. Number 2, it's not necessary for the bomb to be strong, just so it has a nice even coat for that second round. Okay, so we're just going to keep doing that on all of these until we get a nice solid second coat all the way up to that rim edge to make it nice and strong. And once we have a second coat on all of these, then we can pop it back into the fridge or the freezer until it's nice and hard again, and then we can do our assembly process. Now, when you finish up doing this second coat, make sure you save a little bit of your white chocolate so that we can color it to make the details for the snowman. Now, if you don't want to color your white chocolate, you can use colored candy melts or you can use a frosting. Just know that a frosting isn't going to set up hard and is more likely to smudge unless you're doing something like a royal icing that hardens. If you choose to color your white chocolate, you want to make sure you're using a gel food coloring. A gel food coloring usually comes in like a jar or a tube, and it will say gel. We don't want to use liquid drops in white chocolate or in any kind of chocolate because it can cause the texture to change and cause it to separate, and then you'll have an odd consistency and it won't set up correctly. So make sure you're using a gel food coloring, and I'll show you what those look like when we do the decorating process. But a gel food coloring, not a liquid one, if you're planning on doing a colored frosting for the details, or a colored chocolate for the details instead of a frosting. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna get this all finished up, and then we'll pop it into the fridge or the freezer until it hardens. All right, friends, so we're back. Our second coat has set up nice and sturdy. We don't want it to be sticky or tacky because that means it hasn't set up. When you go to pull them out, if you're using a nice silicone mold, you can kind of loosen the edges, kind of give it a little pull. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna peel the silicone off, just like that. Don't try to pull the chocolate out. Peel the silicone off like you're peeling an orange kind of thing, because we want to be really, really gentle and not break those as we're pulling them out, okay? So I'm just gonna pull out a few and then show you what we're gonna do here. I'm gonna set that to the side. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to fill our cocoa bombs, and we're gonna seal them using our plate method here. I'm just gonna use a glass pie pan today. I had a few friends message me and say, I don't have a plate that I'm sure is microwave safe, what else can I use? A glass Pyrex pie pan works really well, or like Pyrex is usually microwave safe. So I'm gonna use a glass pie pan today to show you another way you can melt the edges to seal these bombs, okay? Now, for coloring your chocolate, if you're doing this instead of a frosting, this is an example of a gel food coloring. It comes in a jar. The color is labeled on the lid like this. Sometimes they come in a tube, but the jar is usually the easiest to find. This is very concentrated. It's a very thick consistency, and you only need a teeny tiny bit. So when you go to color your chocolate, you obviously want to make sure it's liquid, but you might need to heat it back up again after you have colored it in case it starts to thicken. Make sure you're putting it into a microwave safe dish. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna scoop a little bit of chocolate into this dish here. And then I'm gonna use the back of this fork, and I'm just gonna put a little bit of food coloring on there. And then I'm just gonna stir that in to that chocolate, okay? You can kind of see. And you can use as much or as little as you want to get the color that you're looking for. What I actually want today is a little bit of a silver or a gray, so I'm just doing a little bit here. And then I already have some in some piping bags with some red and some black over there. So I'm gonna use this little bit here for one of the other things we're gonna make on our little snowman friend. So, but if it starts to thicken, you can kind of see it kind of set up as I was stirring it. I can melt it back down, okay? But once I have the color I want, then I can put my food coloring away. All right, so let's grab our warm pie plate here. And I'm gonna show you how to assemble, okay? Okay, friends, so to assemble our cocoa bomb here, I have a nice warm pie plate right there. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put this down, face down, and I'm just gonna give it a little spin to kind of cause the edge of it to become soft and gooey, kind of melted. And then I'm gonna put 2 tablespoons of this white chocolate mix that we made in there. And then I'm gonna set that to the side, that's the bottom. And then for the top, I'm gonna do the exact same thing. Let me get this one here that's a little smoother. If you have one that has a little bit of a dent, let that be the bottom. All right, so just a nice gooey edge here, and then into the lid, I'm gonna put some marshmallows. So for these, I'm actually doing a fun cereal marshmallow. I'm gonna put that in there. And then I'm gonna take these and I'm gonna kind of clamshell the edge together, and then very carefully dump the marshmallows over into the bottom and make sure that my edges are nice and lined up really smooth. Now, because we're making a snowman out of these, we're not gonna roll these in sprinkles. So we really wanna make sure that that edge is nice and sealed, really smooth. So that's where it's gonna be really important that our pie plate or our plate is really, really warm so we can get a really good melted edge. Just be careful not to leave it on there too long or you're gonna cause your shell to shrink down and then you're gonna have a very short looking bomb. But make sure that that edge seam is nice and smooth and really sealed well, okay? Just like that. So then we're gonna do that again. You can see this one has a little bit of a dimple, so I'm gonna let that be the bottom. So I'm gonna do the same thing, kind of just rub it around so that that edge gets nice and melted. 2 tablespoons of my white chocolate cocoa mix. And then set that down. Do the same thing for my top here. Grab some more of my cereal marshmallows. Dump those in. Kind of clamshell the two together. And dump those over. Make sure my edge is all lined up. And then just kind of smooth around the edge of the bomb there. Make sure that seam is nice and closed. No bumps, nice and smooth. Okay, just like that. All right, so that's how we're gonna seal them. Next, I'm gonna show you a couple of different ways to decorate these so that they kind of look like little snowmen. Okay, so the first little snowman I'm gonna show you here, I'm just gonna make a simple little face. And I'm gonna use some black. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a couple of little eyes. Just like that. Now, like I said, you can do this with colored chocolate or you can do it with a frosting. If you want it to harden, you would need to use like a royal icing, something that will harden as it sets on there. Otherwise, you can just do a colored white chocolate. So I'm going to give this one a little bit of like a coal mouth with some little dots, just like that. And then I'm gonna give him a carrot nose. Now I'm using actually more of a red instead of an orange. You can do whatever color you want. I've done yellow before too. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a little line. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just use the tip of my bag and I'm gonna pull that line to create a point. So I'm not adding more of the red to it. I'm actually just pulling what's on there. And then I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger here. Make sure I get it nice and straight on the top there. So he looks more like he has a little carrot nose. Just like that. So that's a really simple snowman face. Okay? So that's one way to do it. Now, for another option here, you can make this one look a little more festive. We're going to do the same thing and start with some eyes. Just on the top like that. But this one, I'm going to give him kind of a squiggly mouth. Kind of like that. He looks a little perplexed. And then I'm going to take my red here for the nose, and I'm going to do the same thing I did for the carrot before. I'm just going to make a little line in the middle. And then use the tip of the bag to kind of pull that point out like that. But then I have some M&Ms here. I'm going to pull out a couple of M&Ms of the same color. I think I'm going to do blue. And I'm going to take a little bit of my still melted white chocolate. If it's set up a little bit, you can reheat it. But we just need a little bit of that stickiness of the melted chocolate. So I actually just took some. It started to set up a little bit. It's a little bit sticky still. And I'm just going to put a little bit on this M&M to act as a glue. And I'm going to put it on the side so that it kind of looks like a little earmuff here. Just kind of stick it on. Whoop. Stick it on my snowman, kind of like glue. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. Some of this sticky white chocolate from my bowl, and I'm gonna stick it right there on the other side like he has little earmuffs. Okay. Make sure that those are adhered on there really well. Okay. And then we're going to give it a little bit of a band across the top, which is what our gray was for that we dyed a little bit ago. So I'm actually going to put this into the microwave to remelt it, and then we'll finish this. So I've re-softened this gray that I had made a little bit ago. We want to make sure it's not too hot before we put it on, because if it's too hot, when we go to put it on the balm, it'll melt a hole in it. So kind of stir it a little bit and make sure it's not too hot. And you can either put this in a Ziploc bag, or you can kind of use a spoon or a fork or a knife as like a little bit of a paintbrush, because we're just going to do one line. So that's kind of up to you. If you want to pipe it, you can put it into a sandwich bag. Since I'm just doing one little strip across the top of these balms, I'm just going to use the back handle of this fork. I find that that's a little bit easier. The plastic fork isn't quite as heavy as a regular one, and it's a little easier to handle than a knife. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this across the seam from M&M to M&M and make like a little headband. Okay, so make sure you get all the way down to that M&M so it looks like it's attached, and then bring it all the way across that top seam. Okay, and you can do this in any color you want. If you wanted to do red with red M&Ms, you could definitely do that. That's super cute. If you wanted to do green, any color you want is totally fine. It's your snowman. Okay, just like that. So then he looks like he has some cute little earmuffs. Oh, there goes my M&M. Just like that. Okay, we'll just put that right back on. Sometimes the heat from the melted chocolate will soften the chocolate that's already there. Just use it as glue. Just like that. So there's a couple of little cute snowman ideas for your white chocolate bombs. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message, post in the classroom. I'd love to see your creations, and enjoy your cocoa bombs.